Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. If you are new here, my name is Lexi. I will put my Instagram up above, but thank you for joining me today in this video that was actually requested by one of you guys out there, and I thought it was a really good topic, so I wanted to sit down and make a video talking about the biggest mistakes I have made thus far in my bodybuilding career or in my journey as a bodybuilder. So for those of you who may be new here, I am a bikini competitor in the sport of bodybuilding. Little backstory is I started getting into fitness my senior year of high school, and that was in 2016/2017. And I competed for the first time as a freshman in college. I competed twice my freshman year in college, and then I actually took like 2 years away from stage, and then I was back at it last year in 2021 for 3 more shows. So collectively, I've been at it for I've been into fitness since 2017, and I've been into bodybuilding since 2018. So it's definitely been several years, and I wanted to sit down and, I was really reflecting and thinking about what are the top 10 mistakes I have made in my bodybuilding career. It'll be kind of fun for me to look back on these and just kind of like laugh, but also I want these to be learning experiences for you guys who are watching, who may be a new competitor, maybe you're thinking about competing, or even just if you're a competitor yourself. I think these are a lot of things people struggle with. So I'm going to save my biggest mistake for the very end because it is a pretty big one, and it's probably my biggest, I don't want to say regret, because I don't truly believe like in regrets 100%, because I feel like there's always something you can learn from those instances. But I'm gonna save my biggest mistake for the very end because it's a big one. But I'm gonna start with the first 9. And the first thing is one of the biggest mistakes I have made is always having that do more attitude. And that's still something that I am not struggling with, but trying to overcome, and that I still fight myself with daily, of that do more attitude. I grew up as a competitive gymnast, and I grew up in a sport where we were really pushed to our limits every practice. And so I kind of accumulated that mindset of, okay, you need to do more every day. You need to be better every day. You need to push yourself harder every practice every day. And sometimes that transpires into my day-to-day life now. And I have to really sit back and remember, Lexi, it's not always about working harder. Like, it's about being smart, right? Because you cannot grind your body into the ground. You can only do that for so long before, you eventually have, some issues because of doing that. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned. So that's number 1. That's one of the biggest mistakes I've made as a bodybuilder. The second biggest mistake that I have made is not practicing posing enough. So I vividly remember before I competed in 2018, I think it was, I was such a bad poser, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna practice just so much the week before and I'll get it down. It'll be perfect and I'll be fine. And that was the silliest thought, because now, like, I realize how important posing is and how the smallest little things can make such a big difference. And I'm like, that was so silly of me to think. But if I can look back and find like pictures, or I'll at least be able to find pictures or videos of my old posing from like when I first started, I'll post them up here just for giggles, because like we all start somewhere, myself included. But that would be the second biggest mistake I've made, was just not practicing posing enough and kind of thinking that it was easy and that I could just practice a lot leading up to my show and be just fine, Number 3 for mistakes is going to be comparing, in the comparison trap. And I think every competitor experiences this, and I will still say I experience it, and it's something that I fight within my own head, and it's definitely something I've gotten a lot better at. But I remember before my first show, again, another mistake I made going into my first show, but like we all start somewhere, right? Is that I went on social media and I found girls that were going to be at my same show. I just like looked up the hashtag of the show and found girls that I was going to be competing against. And I remember looking at them, and that's literally the worst thing you can do as a competitor going into a show, is to stalk your competition. That can either make you sometimes feel really good about yourself, but a lot of times make you feel 10 times worse about yourself and make you feel like you're not going to be ready or you have no chance. So highly do not recommend doing that. Whether it's your first show or, you're a seasoned competitor and, you're competing at the national level, that is something you do not want to do. And you're only hurting yourself if you're comparing comparing. If you're, getting on social media, you're stalking your competition, you're letting other people's journeys make you feel bad about yourself, that's your control, right? Like, you do not need to be doing that, and you're only hurting yourself by doing that. So I'm a big advocate for filtering your social media feed too, and only following people that like make you feel good about yourself. You shouldn't be following people that make you feel bad about yourself or make you feel like your self-worth is not, where it should be. So that is, what did I say? That was number 3. So number 4, this is a small one, but it's really important to note, for competitors, is traveling right before your show. So what I mean by this is I have actually done a couple of shows now. I've only ever done one show where I haven't traveled. And some of my shows, actually 2 of them, have required me to fly to the actual venue. And one of the biggest mistakes I made was actually last year in 2021. I competed at an Oklahoma show, and I flew in that morning, so the Friday morning before my show. So I had a really early morning flight. I was up super early, and then it was Friday, one day out, and I got there. And the reason I did that is because I was like, oh, I'll save a little money, that way I won't have to pay for a hotel for Thursday night, right? But I highly recommend don't do that as a competitor, because what ended up happening is it could have been worse. I still looked decent, but like, I got on the plane, and first off, I was sleep deprived because I had such an early morning flight, and then I retained water from just that flight and travel itself and being stressed out. And then by the time I got to the actual venue, it's one day out. You don't have a lot of time for your body to just de-stress. So I highly recommend, if you're a competitor traveling, try to fly into the show venue at least like a day or 2 ahead of time, so that way you have some time to like de-stress. So if it's a Saturday show, I would highly recommend flying in on Thursday. That way you have, you can go to bed on Thursday and have all day Friday to just rest and relax and allow that stress to come off. So that is number 4. Number 5 is going to be, not prioritizing the people around me or my support system around me. And I want to kind of explain this one, because I think that who you surround yourself with during your bodybuilding preps really makes such a big difference. In my first prep, specifically at my second show, it was the summer after my freshman year of college. I moved back home and I was living with family, and they did not understand bodybuilding. And I felt very judged every time I was in the kitchen. I was getting like weird looks of everything I was making, and it really just weighed on me. And I felt just so like, I think that was the summer that I can truly say I felt depressed, but that really fed into the enjoyment of prep. And I would assume that probably fed into how I looked too, because if you're always stressed and, you're just always down, that can negatively play into how you look as well. And, this past year when I competed in 2021, obviously I live alone now. I have my own space, but I have surrounded myself with people that do support me, and they do understand this sport. And maybe not everybody around me does this sport. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to surround yourself with bodybuilders, but at least everybody that I'm surrounding myself with now, they support me in what I do. They don't question it. They don't put me down in a negative way for it. And that has tremendously helped with not only the enjoyment of prep, but, also limiting that stress in prep of, I'm not stressed by what other people are thinking anymore. Therefore, I don't have to worry about that stress showing up on my body. So that is, number 5. So that is number 5. So we are halfway through. We are getting there. Okay, so number 6 is going to be having the grass is greener mindset. So I'm sure most of you guys have heard of this phrase being used before. And what I mean by this is, I used to have this mindset of like, when I was in prep, I would look at people who were in their improvement season and be like, oh, I wish I was them. I wish I was, lifting heavy. I wish I was, I actually looked like I had muscle and looked like an athlete, and, I had all that food. And then, I've been in the opposite side where I've been in off season or improvement season, and I've looked at people in prep and I've been like, oh, I wish I was in prep. And, finally I told myself one day, I'm like, Lexi, you need to stop that, because, you're never going to be satisfied if you continue with that mindset. And you really just need to appreciate where you're at in your journey, because again, you're never going to appreciate where you're at in the moment if you always have that grass is greener mindset. So that's a big mistake that I've made, and I've since then really cut that out. And I can honestly say, like, in this improvement season, I haven't been looking at competitors and had that mindset of, oh, I wish I was in prep. I hate where I'm at. Like, I've just been saying, you know what, like, you're gonna miss these days when you're in prep, so enjoy them now. So that would be number 6. Now, number 7, for my biggest mistakes I've made in my bodybuilding career so far is gonna be not recovering enough. Now, this is something I've definitely gotten a lot better with as time goes on, but when I first started lifting, so to say, I was really bad at resting. Even during my first prep, I was really bad at resting. And part of it was because during my first prep, I was a freshman in college and I didn't have a lot to do. Like on the weekends, because like I didn't have a car and there wasn't much to do. So I would just like, the gym was my like for what I did in my free time. And so I was really bad at recovery back in the day. And I think one thing I've learned since then is that, you know, eventually there comes a point where recovery is going to hold you back. You know, it's going to hold you back from building muscle. One thing I preach to all of my athletes, and I remind myself of as well, is when you have a goal of putting on muscle, if you're not recovering, your body is not going to put on muscle, because where the muscle grows is actually when you're recovering. So you have to train really hard to break down those muscle fibers, but where they grow and grow back better is when you're resting. So rest is so important. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning about, you know, working smart, which doesn't always equate to working harder and grinding yourself to the ground. So that's a big lesson that I have learned for sure. Now, number 8 is going to be, number 8 of my biggest mistakes made in my bodybuilding career is going to be not having a coach in my improvement season, in my time away from stage. Now, I have a coach now and I'm in my improvement season, but before my prep last year in 2021, I was just kind of, you know, doing my own thing. I mean, I was eating intuitively. I was very smart about it. It wasn't like I was like losing myself, but I just was kind of doing my own thing. And, you know, that's not to say that you have to have a coach in your improvement season. We're all going to go through different journeys or different phases of our journey, right? Where maybe one season we just want to have more balance and we want to give bodybuilding a rest. But specifically, if you're an athlete who is looking to go far in this sport, and let's say, you know, you want to consecutively do better each season, I think it is really helpful to have a coach in your improvement season. And one of the biggest reasons I will tell you why I have benefited from having a coach in the improvement season is I have been known to, in my past, I was somebody who stayed very lean. And, you know, that was something, you know, to a point. At first, it was just mainly because my metabolism was very fast and I was able to actually maintain a pretty lean physique eating a lot. But eventually it got to a point where I was just so comfortable in my lean physique that I was afraid to gain weight, right? And not having a coach in that season of my life, like I didn't have any accountability. I didn't have anybody telling me you need to gain weight. Like I was just, it was constantly a mind battle of me saying, okay, you need to gain weight, but then I was too fearful. So I wouldn't do it on my own. Whereas this improvement season, you know, my coach now, he's even told me, he's like, I'm so happy and like, you know, that you've actually taken this improvement season seriously. You've put on the necessary weight, you know, you're putting on muscle. That's been a game changer for me because I know I'm like, all right, I have a coach I need to check in with every week. He's going to hold me accountable. You know, I can't make these promises to myself and then not follow through, right? So that's been a game changer. And I highly recommend, like I said, if you're looking to go, you know, far in this sport, having a coach in all seasons is going to be very helpful. Now, again, there are going to be different seasons where, you know, maybe you want to have a little bit more balance and give bodybuilding a break, like I said, and that's fine if you don't want to coach during them. But, you know, you also can't complain if you're not improving your physique every season, if that's the case, if that makes sense. So we're almost to number 10, but number 9 is going to be not informing myself enough before I competed. And this goes back to before my first show. I just feel like I didn't really know anything and I got by. It wasn't like it was awful, but like thinking about what I know now compared to when I started, it's like kind of scary because I didn't even realize how much I didn't know at the time. But, you know, just as far as like when you first want to compete, I think it's really important to inform yourself on the sport, how it works, go to a show, do your research and hire a really good, you know, not only reputable coach, but a coach that knows the sport and who actively, you know, maybe they're not a competitor themselves, but, you know, somebody who at least goes to shows, somebody who knows what they're talking about when it comes to shows. Because having that information or having somebody to guide you along who has that information is literally going to be a game changer. When you first start competing, like I said, you don't realize how much you don't know and how much there is to learn over time. So now getting down to what I said was probably the biggest mistake I've made in my, it is not, probably it is the biggest mistake I've made in my bodybuilding career thus far is going to be staying too lean. So I kind of elaborated to it a minute ago, but staying too lean. And, you know, this is me being very vulnerable because I do sometimes get kind of embarrassed by these pictures, but I will post a couple pictures above. And I want to do a disclaimer. I didn't have an eating disorder. You know, nothing was wrong there. I just had a really hard time mentally wanting to put on weight. I wasn't starving myself by any means. I was probably eating, you know, obviously less than I should have been eating, but that is the biggest mistake I've made as a bodybuilder. And, you know, rather than sitting here beating myself up for it and being like, oh, why did you stay so lean for so long? It did nothing, you know, for you. It didn't help you to put on any muscle. It didn't help you to improve your physique. Rather than looking at it that way, I always look at it as, you know, let it be a lesson that I can teach to other girls, right, of what not to do. And it's also one of those things where it's like, I learned from that. I always look at everything in life as, you know, even if it was a mistake, it's never a failure unless you choose not to learn from it, right? So I can take what I've learned from that experience and teach other people, but I can also, you know, it's just something who knows? I mean, I would have probably never learned the lesson unless I would have gone through it, right? So that is going to be my biggest mistake that I would say I've made in my bodybuilding career. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you guys, all of these mistakes, you know, yes, they were mistakes, and, you know, do I wish they wouldn't have happened? Honestly, I'm going to say no, or I'm going to say I don't mind that they happened because they've all taught me these lessons to lead me to what I know now. And now as a coach, I'm able to teach my girls, you know, what not to do to set themselves up for success. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I hope it was enlightening and kind of just informative. And if you're watching this and you've made any of these same mistakes, comment below. I'd love to hear those. But if you liked this video, please do me a favor, share this video, give it a like, comment below. I don't know what's up with the YouTube algorithm lately, but views have definitely been down, and I work pretty hard for my YouTube channel, so it's like, it's always a little discouraging, but I'm gonna keep the videos coming regardless. But it would mean a lot to me if you guys shared this video, or if you liked it, just showed support that way. But wherever you guys are at in the world, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next video.